Reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Colossians. Whatever you do, work at it with your whole being. Do it for the Lord rather than for men, as you know full well that you'll receive an inheritance from Him as your reward. Be slaves of Christ the Lord. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible. I believe in Jesus Christ, His only begotten Son, born of the Virgin Mary, suffered under Pontius Pilate, was crucified and died, was buried, and descended into hell. How do we understand what that means? He descended into hell. For many of us, while we look upon the crucifix so often, we want to jump straight to the resurrection. But the resurrection is the fulfillment of the promise, the response to the promise kept. The promise was the crucifixion. How to redeem those who have rejected God at every turn. How to redeem a relationship in which one party has been dismissive, unkind, cruel even, to those who are sent to speak to them. Rejecting of the gift, refusing to even attempt to understand, focusing on their own selfishness and greed and desires. There is only one response. And that response is an overwhelming gift of love. To proclaim that despite all those errors, all those mistakes, that we'll be loved all the more, and to give that love up to God the Father. And we give gifts when we do things for each other, when we use methods to show our love, we offer a little something from ourselves, our time, our presence, our skills, our abilities, our financial gifts. But how do you make a sign of love so great that it is the correct response to the rejection of the Creator of all that is? By offering everything, every last fiber of your being as pure gift. By saying, despite knowing full well that I do not have to accept death, but I am willing to. And so Jesus Christ, God the Son, allowed himself to be crucified. And his last action was to cry out, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." Literally, Father, to you I give everything. All I have left. They've taken away everything else I have. My dignity, my peace, my family, my friends. My very life is leaving me. It's now I give you this. And he descended into hell. Because what is hell when we really consider it? Is it a place of fire and brimstone? We know what it is. It's a place where there is almost no presence of God. It's a place where God does not enter. It's a place of ultimate darkness and isolation and the terrible feeling of not having that presence of love. And God the Son placed himself in that position for each and every one of us. What does it mean for God to separate himself from God? What does it mean for God to give all he has and empty himself of himself? Purely because of his love for people that have taken him for granted, misunderstood him, rejected him, spit upon him, beat him, whipped him. For 3 days, God was separated from God. For 3 days, God allowed his triune being to be transformed in such a way as to be an offering of love for his children. It can be easy for us to be almost dismissive of the death of Christ because we know that he is resurrected. But it is only because of his willingness to go through this change in his very being, to allow himself to pour all of himself out for us, to be completely emptied, isolated and alone. During this time of Lent, we are called to enter into prayer, into reflection, into small sacrifices, into seeking reconciliation. All in the hope that in some small way we may connect with the mystery of the passion of the Lord. Throughout all of humanity, the only person who really could truly connect with that would have been the Blessed Mother, what she must have gone through for those 3 days. She who literally carried God in her womb, who raised him, who taught him, carried him, worried about him. For her own 3 days in hell, losing that very powerful, intimate connection of a mother to her child, but that child being God the Son. We must ask the Blessed Mother to pray for us to help us to engage in that mystery as we come closer to the passion and death of Christ. Who but her husband, St. Joseph, despite not understanding, knew that his wife would be troubled and challenged by such a painful thing. Knew that something was coming and there was nothing he could do about it. Let's ask St. Joseph for his intercession to help us too, like him, while we can never fully understand the Blessed Mother's pain, to be willing to be open to knowing that it was that pain. And by knowing that there was pain, asking God to help us to see the pain that our own sins cause him. When I was in seminary, we had a professor who posed a question to us. If Christ had wanted to, could he have taken himself down from the cross? He asked this on a test. I responded with no. And my defense was because that would make him less than what he is. And the one thing that God cannot do is be less than what he is. Let's ask the Lord to help us to reach, to grow to the potential to be what we can be, to be those who see the gift, who recognize all that Christ offered to us on that day 2,000 years ago, to give us the courage and the humility, the ability to resonate with others as they suffer, to seek our own salvation through growing in our love with our Father, and being those who too offer the love that we have for all the world.